Spider-Man is one of my favorite superheroes of all time, right under Superman and Batman. Ever since I was growing up, I was always a huge Spider-Man fan, whether it was watching the cartoons like the 90s Spider-Man TV show. Hey Marvel, if you're watching this, please do a Spider-Man 98 TV show the same way you did an X-Men 97. Continuing on with the Spider-Man shows, I even watched Spider-Man Unlimited. I thought it was pretty mid. I watched that little short, kind of obscure Spider-Man show. I don't know if you guys remember this Spider-Man show on MTV, but that show was pretty decent. I watched that too. Then I watched the peak spectacular Spider-Man.
Lord have mercy, I'm about to bust.
In my honest opinion, the two best Spider-Man shows of all time are the Spectacular Spider-Man TV show and the 90s Spider-Man TV show. Those two shows still cannot be topped, but unfortunately, we witnessed the Spectacular Spider-Man get canceled for the trash Ultimate Spider-Man show, and that's when I started to realize that damn, Marvel really does not like Spider-Man anymore. Marvel really does not want to treat Spider-Man good in any of their TV products, because after we witnessed the dog shit Ultimate Spider-Man show, we now witnessed a show that is somehow even worse than the Ultimate Spider-Man show, and that is that Marvel Spider-Man show. And that show was so bland, it had no sauce, it had no rhythm, it was just so forgettable and boring. But it seems that Marvel is trying to continue the trend of diminishing returns in regards to the Spider-Man TV franchise with your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, I gave my thoughts about the first two episodes of this show last week when I talked about some of the choices that they made for the show. I talked about the animation of the show being subpar and not really being good. And I talked about the show's story and how it handles Peter's life alongside Spider-Man's life as well. And now that Marvel/Disney Plus has released 3 more episodes for your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man, episode 3, episode 4, and episode 5, I'm going to give my thoughts about these new episodes. I'm going to try to answer if these new 3 episodes fix some problems that I saw in the first 2 episodes, like Peter's private life, because I did not like how they're making Peter Parker so pure. By me saying pure, I'm talking about Peter Parker. He is not really being bullied. He doesn't really have any struggles. He doesn't have too much adversities that he's facing in school. And I think these 3 episodes did not fix that problem, in my honest opinion. And you were probably asking yourself, yo, big bro, these problems don't really matter. Why are you continuing to harp on this matter? Why are you continuing to bring up Peter Parker's private life in high school? Well, I'm trying to bring that up because Peter Parker's private life is a main component in telling a Spider-Man story, because yes, the Spider-Man aspect of his life can be exciting, can be entertaining, can be crazy, and the story of the Spider-Man aspect of his life can be very good. But if the Peter Parker side of his life is boring and is mediocre and has no real suspense that is actually begging you to continue to watch the episodes, then I do think that balances out the good side of your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. There's 2 sides to a coin. If one side is great but the other side is ass, that means the entire coin is mid, in my honest opinion. But let me actually start off with what happened in episode 3. And episode 3 is following the fact that Norman Osborn, he uncovered Peter Parker's identity, because remember, we saw Peter Parker, he undressed himself in one of Norman Osborn's elevator at Oscorp. Norman Osborn, he had the surveillance cameras that actually depicted Peter. So when he brings this fact, when he brings this evidence to Peter Parker, Peter, he's trying to deny it, but ultimately he now realizes that, okay, I've been caught. Okay, Norman, you know who I am, so now what do you want? But let me talk about this little moment and say that Peter Parker is actually pretty dumb for doing that, because yes, I know that he's still a kid. I know that he's still like 15 or 14 years old in this show, so obviously he will make some mistakes like that. But Peter Parker, he is a very, very smart person, even in the comics. So I'm just bringing up that in the 616 comics, Peter Parker won't be that stupid to make some type of mistake where someone can easily spot and detect that he's Spider-Man, because in the Oscorp building that he undressed himself in, I actually thought that he would have been smart enough to realize that, damn, maybe I should not put on my Spider-Man suit in here because anyone can walk in at any time and there are security cameras here. But that's just a little tidbit that I wanted to say about that particular matter. But we're starting to see that Norman Osborn, he is offering Peter his real job, and that job is, look, I can help you out in your Spider-Man endeavors. I can try to basically help you to save people, because I'm seeing what's happening with the entire world. I'm seeing what's happening with everyone. And not only that, I watched you save my son, Harry Osborn. I realized that, yo, this person that saved my son, I need to thank this guy. I need to congratulate him. Not only to congratulate him, but I need to help him out as well, because if he can save my son like that, that means this guy is a real force of good, and that means he really wants to save the people of New York. So Peter, he actually declines Norman Osborn's offer, because when Norman, he invites Peter to dinner, and when Peter and Norman Osborn are discussing about the terms, Peter, he actually denies the offer. He denies the request to have Norman Osborn helping him in being Spider-Man. So after this, we're seeing that Peter, he is back at school, and like I said earlier, this problem is continuing in the show. We're not seeing somebody that's really challenging Peter in terms of his personal life. Nobody is antagonizing him. Nobody is bullying him. The only people that are really hurting him in his life are criminals that he's catching. And coincidentally, two more criminals will now start to antagonize Peter, but not really Peter. They're going to antagonize Spider-Man, because these two criminals, Tarantula and Speed Demon. Now, you're probably asking yourself, wait, isn't Tarantula a guy? Well, no, that's not the case, because in the 616 Marvel comics, there are multiple tarantulas. The first tarantula in the 616 Marvel comics is actually Anton Miguel Rodriguez, but in the show they decided to go with the other tarantula that is in the 616 universe, and that other tarantula is Maria Vasquez, and alongside Maria Vasquez is Speed Demon. But Speed Demon in the show, I kind of don't really like how he's portrayed in this show, because in the comics we see that Speed Demon, he actually has superpowers in the comics, because he was contacted by the Grandmaster and was offered superhuman powers in exchange for joining a team that would basically compete on the Grandmaster's behalf. But in this show, they went with a different route by making Speed Demon, he will gain his abilities through tech from this distributor, from the person that is basically distributing the same type of tech that Peter encountered with that first villain in the first two episodes. So I noticed that, okay, Maria Vasquez and Speed Demon, they are actually receiving the same equipment from the same person. So this will actually tie into what we will later see in the next 3 episodes. But Spider-Man, he is fighting Speed Demon and Tarantula, and he is actually seeing that, damn, they are strong. They are actually outpowering me. They are outnumbering me. So I'm getting my ass beat. And Spider-Man, he was getting his ass beat at first, until Norman Osborn, he hacked into Spider-Man's comms, and Norman Osborn tells Spider-Man, look, you need some help. I can help you in defeating them. Just do as I say, basically. So Peter, he reluctantly listens to Norman Osborn's advice. Then he now uses Norman Osborn's advice and implements them into the fight, and that works. And the way that he defeats Tarantula and Speed Demon, he causes their power to basically override, because when Speed Demon was trying to catch Spider-Man. Spider-Man, he used his weapon and he latched them onto two opposite buildings that are adjacent to one another. So then he now created this long tightrope of a spider web, and this causes Speed Demon to trip. Then he now defeated Tarantula by webbing both of them together, and their powers now basically overrided, and now their powers are completely shut down, leaving them to be arrested. So when this happens, Spider-Man is like, wow, this actually really helped me in this fight. Maybe I should have listened to Norman Osborn at first. So he now goes back to Norman Osborn and he now tells Norman Osborn, look, about your offer, I think we can work with each other. I think that we can make a great team. Welcome to the Spider-Man team. So Norman Osborn now shakes hands with Peter Parker, and then the episode now ends there. But we now see the side story of episode 3, and that is Lonnie Lincoln, and we're seeing that Lonnie Lincoln, he is having to deal with a devastating situation, and that is his little brother has joined a gang. His little brother is starting to vandalize property around New York, around the place they're living. So this causes his little brother to be picked up by the police and brought back home. So now this is going to affect Lonnie Lincoln's personal life, and Lonnie Lincoln, he is having to ditch his girlfriend. He is having to ditch his football practice just to see if he can get this situation right. But as soon as he's about to try to talk to his little brother, we see that his little brother has ran away. So Lonnie has to track down his little brother by, I think it's this universe's version of like an AirTag, of like an Apple AirTag. So he now tracks down his little brother to the location slash hideout of the 10th Street Gang. Basically, the Don of the 10th Street Gang is this dude called Big Don. And Lonnie, he sees his little brother. He's like, yo, you gotta come back home. You're causing too much trouble at home, man. You're not doing this again. As they're about to leave, Big Don now confronts Lonnie and says, yo, where do you think you're going? You can't just leave here right now. You come into my establishment. You try to say things, try to do things in my place. That's disrespectful. So at first, they were about to jump Lonnie Lincoln and the little brother. But Lonnie Lincoln now says, okay, look. Let me actually do this deal with you. Let my brother go, but I will take my little brother's place. And I like that character aspect of Lonnie Lincoln, that he will try to do wrong just to help out his little brother. He will protect his little brother no matter what, even if it means that Lonnie Lincoln is going to have to join a gang. He's going to have to join the 10th Street Gang. So Big Don, he lacks that idea, and he says, okay, you're not part of the gang. Yo, little bro, get your ass out of here. So then the little brother, he now runs away, goes back home, and now we're seeing that Lonnie Lincoln, he is now a member of the 10th Street Gang, but not official yet, because that will be answered later in the next 3 episodes. And now episode 4 starts, and now in my honest opinion, I think episode 4 is my favorite episode of the series so far. Not because it answers the criticisms of Peter Parker's personal life. No, Peter Parker in the show is boring. Sure, yeah, he's a good kid, but nothing impactful is happening in his personal life in school. Nothing is happening in his personal life even at his internship job. And this Peter Parker, he does not work at the Daily Bugle in the show. I know Peter Parker works at the Daily Bugle at the end of his high school term, but in this show, there's no mention of the Daily Bugle in the entire show, but there is one mention that is actually a reference to the MCU, and that is when Peter Parker, he goes back to Norman Osborn, and now the Spider-Man team has started. They are now working with each other. They are trying to see if they can build an effective team that can help out New York, but Norman Osborn, he's too preoccupied watching something, and he now shows Peter Parker what's happening in the wider world of this universe, and that is that the Sokovia Accords just happened. And the Sokovia Accords is basically resembling what happened in the MCU at Captain America Civil War and Captain America the Winter Soldier, because if you watch those 2 movies, the events of Winter Soldier basically caused the whole Civil War to happen because of Winter Soldier's arrival and what he did to Tony Stark's parents. So now the Civil War event just happened at this universe. So now all the superheroes need to register. Every single superhero needs to register with some type of organization, or else they're gonna be arrested. So now Norman Osborn, he's seen this opportunity and basically saying that, look, this is a great opportunity for you to actually really work with me. So Peter, he agrees for this to happen. So that's the big MCU reference that this show has. This show is basically an MCU adjacent show. We have a young, hip Aunt May. We have some little references of Uncle Ben, but no physical Uncle Ben because he died before even Peter got bit in the show. And we're seeing about the Sokovia Accords that led to the Civil War. So this show, remember, it was originally planned to be a prequel to the MCU's Tom Holland's entire story. But now, remember, they changed their plans. So now this show is an original show, but it's still set in the MCU multiverse. But I just had to tell you that little tidbit of a reference. But as we're seeing the episode is continuing, we're seeing that now Peter Parker, he is trying to use Norman Osborn's suits in his superhero career. I really like this sequence that they did with Peter trying the 3 suits. Now, the first suit that Peter tried on, and these 3 suits that Peter tried on, if you know the 616 Spider-Man, you're probably familiar with these 3 suits, and they are the Prodigy suit, the Hornet suit, and the Dusk suit. And Peter tried all of these suits during the 1998 Identity Crisis event when Norman, he put a large bounty on Spider-Man's head, forcing Peter Parker to now assume new masks and new mantles and new identities to evade Norman Osborn's detection. But in this show, they kind of switched that story and basically made Norman offering Peter the suits instead of making Peter be the one that is making the suits on his own. So I like the sequences that they did when we see that Peter in his Prodigy suit, he is trying to, you know, stop the same criminals that I think should be Flash Thompson, but there is no Flash Thompson in this show. But we see that Prodigy, his suit, he falls down and the cape is now caught on a guard railing, and that is basically a little joke explaining that, yeah, Spider-Man is not good with capes. Peter Parker, he is never a good person in capes, man. But we now see Peter's Hornet suit, and in the Hornet suit, he's trying to fly, but he is losing control in his flight patterns. He accidentally strikes a woman's car, so Peter eventually, he's trying to get the hang of it. He almost gets the hang of it until a bus now runs Peter over. So Peter says to Norman, no, these 2 suits aren't working. Do you have a 3rd suit? And then Norman now gives Peter the Dusk suit, and Peter uses the Dusk suit to save this little girl's balloon, but the little girl is so scared looking at Peter's Dusk suit because it's so dark, it's so menacing, it's so scary looking. And Peter, he does not want to scare children. He is not like Batman, where Batman uses his suit to scare criminals and scare people. But even though Batman isn't intentionally trying to scare kids, you know, he's wearing a big black costume and horns on his head. That's gonna scare children. So Peter, he's telling Norman Osborn, look, all these suits aren't working, man. Can you please give me a suit that will work? So Norman now looks at Peter and says, you know what, you're right. I want you to have a suit that you're comfortable in. I want you to have a suit that you can feel like you're Spider-Man. Before I go on further, I have to say that Peter actually had sketched a concept of his own Spider-Man suit, and his own Spider-Man suit is the classic Spider-Man suit we all know and love. But let me go back to the future and talk about Norman now giving Peter the Future Foundation suit, aka in this universe, the Oscorp Spider-Man suit. And this Oscorp Spider-Man suit, Peter, he actually likes this suit. He sees that this suit, it functions good. You can swing doing well. You don't have to fly. You don't have to have a cape. He feels like Spider-Man, so Peter is liking what he's seeing. But now back to the subplot of Lonnie Lincoln. And Lonnie Lincoln, he is now realizing that, damn, my life is fucked up. My life is cooked. I am now a part of a gang that I don't want to be. I am ditching my girlfriend. My coach is about to kick me off the team, so he tries to do some damage control, you know, and he basically has this rose that he plucked from his mom's garden, trying to basically make it up to Pearl, she's just telling Lonnie, look, you can talk to me if you need anything. I am here for you. And Lonnie's like, oh yeah, that's true, you know, I really respect that. I really appreciate that. So Lonnie, he is trying to make amends with not only Pearl but his coach, and we see Lonnie talk with his coach. His coach is telling Lonnie, look, you're a very talented kid. You are going to be a superstar in the future, but please, man, can you please just come to practice? We need you. But it's not that like we need you really. It's better for you, because if you don't come to practice, I'm gonna have to kick you off the team. So Lonnie, he is facing this dilemma of, bro, my new life is fucking up my old life. And now we're seeing that Lonnie, he's always being called by Big Don telling him to come, because now Lonnie has to do gang activities. And one of these gang activities is actually going to the Scorpion's turf. Now, you'll probably be asking, wait, Scorpion is in this show? Well, yeah, 2 Scorpions. And in the 616 comics, there are 2 Scorpions. The 2 Scorpions that we actually know in the 616 comics is Mac Gargan, but the other Scorpion is Carmilla Black. So Big Don, he is having to deal with the Scorpion gang. But I don't like the aspect that the Scorpions are a gang. That's not who the Scorpion character is. Now, I like the designs for Mac Gargan and Camilla Black in the show, but I don't like their occupation. I don't like the fact that they start off as a gang, because Mac Gargan was not a criminal like that per se. He was a former private investigator, and you know, he was hired by J. Jonah Jameson to find out how Peter Parker was able to get great pictures of Spider-Man. So Mac Gargan in the 616 comics was never really in a gang, so I do not like the deviation of the character from Mac Gargan. I really think that they should have kept his origin like how it was in the comics, where he was a private investigator of Spider-Man, and then, you know, he keeps on trying to capture Peter Parker, taking all these great pictures, and this causes Mac Gargan to eventually spiral into the Scorpion. But the show didn't go that route, and we're seeing that Camilla Black in the show, I like her design though, you know, I mean, I do like her design, but she's also a Scorpion as well in the comics. So the showrunners of the show decided to just add both of them into a gang, and I didn't really like it in my honest opinion. But we're seeing that Lonnie Lincoln, he has to go to this store to collect a package for Big Don. This causes Lonnie Lincoln to almost get chased and almost get jumped and robbed by one of the members of the Scorpion gang. So when Lonnie comes back to Big Don, he tells him, look man, I almost got my ass beat. I almost got beat up. Why do I have to do all this? Then Big Don is basically scolding Lonnie, and he tells him that, look, you signed up for this. You wanted to do this, so now you're gonna have to do this. So the episode is about to wind down, and we're seeing that Spider-Man, he's coming back to Norman Osborn, and he's happy, he's ecstatic, seeing that, wow, this suit is so great. I gotta tell Norman about this suit. But when he goes back into Oscorp and tries to contact Norman, we see that he takes off his mask right in front of Harry Osborn. Then the episode ends, and episode 5 now picks up where episode 4 left off, and we see that Harry Osborn now knows that Spider-Man is Peter Parker. This is also something that I don't really like about the show, is that I think Harry Osborn finds out about Spider-Man a little bit too early, in my honest opinion. Now, Harry Osborn in the 616 comics, he wasn't really a close friend with Spider-Man in high school. Actually, he didn't really even know Spider-Man in high school, but it was when they went to college, it was when Harry Osborn and Spider-Man eventually became close friends in college, is when Harry Osborn eventually now becomes friends with Peter Parker at Empire State University, and they weren't really friends at first. Harry was more so of a friend to Flash Thompson, and him and Flash kind of thought that Peter was like the outcast on purpose, trying to look better than everybody. But later, Harry now realized that, oh yeah, no, he's not doing that. He's actually being an outcast because of his personal life. So I understand that. And he's actually a shy kid. So Harry and Peter eventually become friends. They become even closer when Harry has to deal with Norman Osborn's criminal life coming into his life and affecting his life. And Harry now became a drug addict. Harry went through a lot during Green Goblin's original run, so this now causes Harry to become the Green Goblin as well when he finds out that Peter is Spider-Man. But that all happened when they were in college, but the showrunners for Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man decided to actually rush that and make Harry find out that Peter is Spider-Man before any of that, before anything like that. And the way that he found out was by accident, you know what I mean? And I just thought that, like, damn, maybe they didn't need to go that route. Maybe they could have actually built up the friendship first before making Harry find out that, oh yeah, this guy is Spider-Man. But we're starting to see that now Norman Osborn, he has a plan for this team. He wants Harry Osborn to be the new member of the Spider-Man team. And Peter at first is apprehensive because I don't really know the guy, you know what I mean? Sure, yeah, I saved him, and sure, yeah, he's pretty cool, he's a chill guy, but I don't really know him. So you can understand where Peter's coming from, you know what I mean? But, you know, since he did stumble upon Harry and he did take off his mask in front of Harry, and Norman has a valid reason because he's saying that, look, there's gonna be some times where I'm not gonna be available and I'm not gonna be there to help you. I'm not gonna be there to give you input on how to stop a particular crime. So Harry and Peter now become acquainted with each other. They now start to actually get to know each other well, and they start to become pretty good friends. But we're seeing that Peter's private life, he has no struggles. Like, in my honest opinion, this show, Peter is the golden child of everybody, man. Everybody loves him. Nobody is trying to test him. Nobody is trying to bully him. And that's not a core component of Spider-Man's early life, man. Spider-Man, like I said in my earlier video, Spider-Man has it rough, but we're only seeing the place where he's actually being bullied is at the Oscorp internship job by Dr. Bentley Whitman, aka the Wizard. So the Wizard is a pure hater in the show. He is always hating on Peter Parker. When Peter Parker is given this presentation and Peter is stuttering, he's not really knowing what to say, Dr. Bentley Whitman is just berating him, basically telling him that, bro, you're useless. Get out of my establishment. But I'm thinking that he's actually jealous of Peter Parker. But after all of this, we now see new villains of the show. We see some familiar faces that we know, and some of these familiar faces that we see are Dmitry Smerdyakov, aka the Chameleon, Alexei Sietevich, aka the Rhino. I really love that they included my boy the Rhino, but he's not the Rhino yet. And we now see another character. It's actually Milos Masaryk in Earth 616 comics, but in the show they changed the gender of Milos, and now his new name, aka her new name, is Mila Masaryk, and the other person that we see is Roxana Volkov. And basically the four criminals are Rhino, the Chameleon, the Unicorn, and Roxana Volkov. I forgot her name in the 616 comics, but I don't really mind that they changed the gender of Milos to Mila, because Milos is an obscure character in himself as a unicorn. But like I said in my earlier video, if there was no need to change it, why change it? But I do think that they made Mila very formidable in the show later in the episode, because these four criminals, they are doing a bank robbery, they're doing a bank heist for the same distributor that is distributing equipment to criminals such as Speed Demon, Tarantula, and the first villain of the show. So these 4 criminals, Rhino, Chameleon, Roxana, and the Unicorn, they are trying to get away, they're trying to flee, but Spider-Man, he's not far from them. Spider-Man is chasing them, and Spider-Man, he is about to capture them, but they're causing hazards that Spider-Man just cannot ignore. And one such hazard is that they were just ramming through cars as they were escaping, and it caused a massive explosion that nearly burned a lot of people alive, but Spider-Man managed to save the civilians. But then the criminals eventually got stopped by the police, but before they got stopped, Mila, she actually gets out of the van and she escapes the van with the money that they stole. So she, at first, you would think that she abandoned them, but she did not abandon them. She went to the distributor, and we now realize that the distributor is someone that we're familiar with. We realize the distributor is someone that we should have known all this time, because who else is smart enough in the Spider-Man Rogues Gallery that is smart enough to be giving random criminals some high-grade weapons unless it's Dr. Otto Octavius, aka Dr. Octopus. And Dr. Octopus in this show, I really love his design. In the show, Otto Octavius looks exactly like his 616 counterpart. He looks like he was ripped straight off of the comics onto the TV, and I like how his design is. I like how he's portrayed. But Unicorn, she is basically telling Dr. Octopus that, look, I'm not familiar with any of these equipment, but Dr. Octopus, he now basically gives the Unicorn this helmet that can shoot lasers. So Unicorn, she uses this helmet so that she can go back to the prison and free Rhino, Chameleon, and Roxana, and she manages to do that. She frees all of these criminals from the jail, and as the jailbreak is going on, we see that Spider-Man, he is talking to Harry Osborn, but Harry now tells Spider-Man, yo, a jailbreak is going on, you gotta go and stop it. So Spider-Man goes there, he now reaches the place, and he now starts to fight Unicorn, and Unicorn is beating Spider-Man's ass. This is what I'm talking about by saying that Unicorn is a formidable character in this show, because she was beating the shit out of Spider-Man. Spider-Man was trying to do damage control by trying to save some civilians and save some pedestrians along the way, but Unicorn was using that to her advantage. She was basically realizing that, yo, Spider-Man is always trying to save these people, so let me use that to my advantage and put them in harm's way, making Spider-Man try to save them so I can see an opening, I can see an opportunity in attacking Spider-Man. And this was basically the entire theme of the fight, but this was actually causing the criminals alongside the Unicorn. This is causing them to think, yo, let's actually escape right now before Spider-Man recaptures us. And the Chameleon was trying to talk some sense into Rhino, trying to tell Rhino, look, we gotta go. But Rhino, he's telling the guys, yo, Mila saved us, we gotta stay here to help her. But in my opinion, he was pretty dumb in thinking that, you know, you gotta stay to help this girl. So the Chameleon and Roxana, they not actually escape, but Rhino stays. And the same theme of the fact that Spider-Man is trying to help people but is getting attacked as he's trying to help people. But this theme stops when the people that he was trying to help, they are out of harm's way, and Spider-Man, he now basically stops holding back. He grabs Mila by the hand, but Mila, she is actually strong. She is not fazed by any of that, and she still beats up Spider-Man. She's about to kill Spider-Man, but Rhino, he saved Spider-Man because during the fight, Mila used Rhino as bait. She was about to incinerate Rhino, but Spider-Man got in the way and got hit. So this causes Rhino to betray Mila and basically take off the helmet, and this causes Spider-Man to subdue Mila, and Rhino now got arrested by the police. But Rhino warns to Spider-Man that, look, you and I are not friends. Just because you saved me doesn't mean that we're friends. Just because I returned the favor by saving you does not mean that we're friends. We're still enemies, and the next time I see you, I'm gonna kill you. But Now, let's go to Lonnie Lincoln's story. Lonnie Lincoln is still dealing with the fact that his double life is catching up to him because he had to skip practice. He had to skip the most important practice of his football career that will most likely cost him to be kicked out of the football team. But Lonnie Lincoln, he had to go to Big Don's location because Big Don and the Scorpion Gang are now about to brawl. They start to brawl. The brawl is pretty intense, but Big Don was about to get stabbed by Scorpion, aka Matt Gargan, but Lonnie Lincoln now tackles Matt Gargan. He tackles him down and he subdues him, but Matt Gargan quickly pushes him off of him, tries to kill Lonnie, but then the police come. The police pressure is too much, which causes both gangs to disperse and to run away. So after the fight, we see that Big Don, he's catching up with Lonnie Lincoln, and Big Don is telling the gang, yo, this is the superstar, this is the guy that saved my ass. But Lonnie Lincoln does not want to be called superstar, so Big Don basically says, okay, how about Tombstone? But this causes Lonnie Lincoln to now think, yo, this is a good name. I like being called Tombstone. And that's where all of the 3 episodes end. Man, this video is long as fuck in my honest opinion. But remember, I still have some criticisms of this show. I do not like that the Scorpions are a gang in my honest opinion. I think Matt Gargan's origin should not have been tied alongside with Camilla Black's origin. I think they should have had their own separate paths, and those separate paths will eventually cross with one another. I still have some of my criticisms, like with Harry Osborn finding out that Peter Parker is Spider-Man early on, and I thought that it was rushed. I thought that they should have actually developed their friendship more, and basically we would have seen them on screen longer so that we can actually see the weight of the emotions when Peter actually reveals himself to be Spider-Man in front of Harry. I think they kind of rushed that, and I still have some other criticisms that I will want to say, but man, this video was long. I do actually think that these 3 episodes weren't that bad in my honest opinion. They were still pretty mid, but the fact that Peter Parker's personal life being so great, being so spotless, being so void of struggles, Peter Parker is not receiving any hate except for Dr. Bentley women. Peter Parker is not being bullied. He is not being antagonized day in and day out. So that's my main criticism of this show, that they did not answer in these 3 episodes. Peter Parker is still living an easy life in my honest opinion. They gotta change that in season 2, man. But other than that, these 3 episodes were better than the first 2 episodes, but that still won't change my overall opinion that this show is pretty mid. As the end of the video, I'm out. Peace.